Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. This video I want to talk about motivation versus discipline and why I think that discipline is the core by which you need to aim to achieve your goals. So you may be asking, what really is the difference between motivation and discipline? Let's start off with that. Motivation is very much an emotion, whereas I consider discipline a habit. And what I mean by that is motivation is very much temporary. It's defined by external things. It's dependent on your current day emotion, whereas discipline is much more an established thing that you within yourself, which is not as much influenced by the exterior and is influenced by what's within. So just as motivation is an emotion and discipline is a habit, motivation is very much reactive, whereas discipline isn't. So let's talk about, for example, New Year's resolutions. At the beginning of the year, let's say you want to go to the gym. This is a very common New Year's resolution. People will say like, oh, new year, new me. I'm gonna get my dream body. I'm gonna lose the weight or whatever the goal they set in mind. And what you'll see at the beginning of the year is gyms tend to be very packed because people associate the new year with a new beginning. And this is where the motivation comes from. People are motivated by external, they get external things which give them that motivation. However, this is not something that they really want to do. They're not really dedicated to that in that regard. And so maybe they go for a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe they even make it through half a year, but inevitably they collapse. They lose that motivation, and whatever goal they had in mind, just like that, overnight dissipates. Whereas, think about the guy that goes to the gym on a regular. Maybe he's a bodybuilder. Maybe he's just someone who likes to take care of his health. He or she, that is. And they've been going for years. You don't see them posting on, say, the social media about new year, new me. This is not even in their thoughts. For them, the gym is just a habit. There's no thought that goes into it. They don't require any external motivation. It's just a habit. And just as it's a habit, it's natural. So the reason why I think discipline versus motivation is very much important is because habits are things that are maintained. They last. Emotions, they fluctuate. And just if motivation is always subject to external stimuli, then you're just never going to be able to maintain that. Because once those external stimuli change, then are you going to just change with it? That's a very important point that all of you should be aware of. So I talked about in a video just a few videos ago about how you need to really kind of reduce your mental load. And I talk about the paradox of choice and decision fatigue. And decision fatigue pretty much means when you're presented with too many decisions, too many choices, you end up burning out. You end up not being able to choose the correct one, or maybe none at all. So think of motivation and discipline the same way. When you have motivation, you have more control maybe in the moment because there's things prompting you to achieve that goal, but it's very subject to whim. Same way, if you had a paradox of choice, too many choices, or decision fatigue, you're very much subject to whim and change at any specific moment. However, when you rely on discipline, you have very set rules for yourself. You tell yourself, hey, this is the rule and I'm gonna follow it. So then, no matter what external things come in your way, you're still gonna follow it because that's a rule that you set for yourself. You reduce the mental clutter, and as a result, you're able to abide by whatever goals or commitments you set in place. So think about that, and in my mind, it's always best to simplify no matter what. And simplicity allows you to adhere to whatever you stick to because there's less external friction in the way. So next thing I want to talk about is When you have discipline, this is another important part which I think is very beneficial of discipline, is that when you have discipline, you have control over your emotions. So if you have discipline, I think you could have motivation as well. Whereas if you have motivation, that doesn't necessarily mean you have discipline. So discipline is very much control over your emotions. And if motivation is an emotion, then you're gonna have control over it. So whereas, let's say maybe there's a girl you like, and that's what encouraged you to get your dream gym body. Let's say that was your goal, to, you know, develop that physique that you want. Then motivation, maybe you really like that girl and she's motivating you to do it, but what happens after she rejects you potentially, or you realize that, hey, you don't actually like that girl that much, then all that motivation goes away and your original goal also goes away. Whereas if you just had this internal discipline in which you're like, you really want this and you do everything you can to achieve it, and it's irrespective, independent of whatever motivation's in place, that is your only motivation. The motivation is you, it's not the external. And that's very much powerful. So I think that, especially if we're talking about the difference between motivation and discipline really is gonna allow you to stick to goals long term, whereas motivation is very much influenced by the short term. So motivation actually may be a more powerful driver when we're talking about short-term commitments, just because if you have a short time to adhere to it, you could just use that exterior. And I think that exterior motivation actually has power at the beginning. For example, let's go back to this gym example. If someone's like, I want to build that dream body and I got to do it really quickly, you bet yourself that they're going to be going to the gym really hard and sticking for it if it's just for a short time. And that's what we talk about motivation. A lot of time you see in, let's say, like a Hollywood movie or something, the actor goes on a very strict, rigorous diet. They train super hard and they're able to build up what they need to adhere for that specific role, that specific acting role that they have in the movie. However, afterwards, they're not able to maintain that for long term. And this is where motivation could be very much powerful, because those external stimuli can really prompt you in the short term, whereas the discipline is much more about long-term adherence. Say you wanted to build a business up, that's not just going to be in a week. Short-term motivation is just not going to hold you up for that, whereas discipline will keep you running in more long-term endeavors. So now, just as motivation is short-term, discipline is long-term. And for most goals in life, we're not just looking for the short-term little high, we're looking for the long-term achievement. And discipline is what's going to allow you to do that, not motivation. That's kind of another distinction I want to kind of talk about between discipline and motivation. Next thing is this. We already talked about how motivation is very much subject to external influences, whereas discipline isn't. When you're experiencing lows, let's say you have the motivation to do something, you're going to sit there and work to do it. You're going to work to accomplish it. But then, let's say things are not going the way that you want to. That's what we call a low time. Or let's say things turn out unexpectedly. That's another low. When your motivation is not paying the returns that you originally expected it to, you're just going to give up, because you're like, why am I doing this if the motivations are not even coming true? Whereas, let's take the example. The gym is it's just a good example, although gym is not the end all be all of life. If you had the motivation and you're like, hey, I want to look like a bodybuilder, and you never gone to the gym before, if you just go and work hard for a month, yeah, you can make good progress and maybe lose weight or something, but you're not going to overnight become a bodybuilder. It's just not going to happen. That's going to take years and years and years. So you could consider that a low. And when you're not getting the results that you want, even though you had the motivation, you're just going to lose interest. You're going to lose that motivation. And when you lose that motivation, you lose that adherence to the goal. Whereas, let's say you understood that, hey, bodybuilding, for example, is a lifestyle. You're just going to stick to it day in and day out. And you're going to be okay with that slow progress. And when you hit those plateaus, those low points, you're going to still push forward and push forward and push forward. And that's the power of discipline. The final thing I kind of want to talk about in this video is comfort. And it goes against motivation and discipline. But I think it's very much important toward the overall point of adherence to goals and commitments. A lot of time people demonize comfort. People say, oh, stop being a punk, stop being a wuss. I mean, get that discipline. And yes, discipline is very much a powerful tool, but at the same time, you can't just be always on the discipline line. Because yes, you can have discipline even for many years, but discipline, just like motivation, it still needs a strong framework. Otherwise, it's gonna fall apart. Discipline is not just this thing that you have once and then it never goes away. Even discipline is subject to turmoil. And although motivation is much more subject to it. And if you don't balance the discipline with comfort, then that discipline is going to wane over time. Same way the motivation would. So comfort is very much important. And again, a lot of people demonize it. People say that, like, oh, you need to always be grinding. You need to always be, doing more, always be improving. And yes, that is true to some regard. But if you don't allow yourself just the time to relax, we as humans, it is very much in our natural instinct to relax. Just like there's times, in nature, there's times when you hunt and there's times that you do things in order to survive. But there's also a lot of time that you sit and relax. And that is the body's natural response. The body's natural response really does want to just relax most of the time. It doesn't want to exert any extra energy than it needs to, because in nature, that would mean you're dead if you're exerting unnecessary energy. And that's why a lot of people have, this struggle to maintain discipline in the first place, willpower in the first place, because it does go against a lot of our natural senses. So in our modern world, if you do want to succeed, discipline is very much important, but you absolutely need to balance it with comfort. So this is kind of my overall take on discipline versus motivation, with some comfort thrown in there. Discipline, I think, needs to be the foundation by which you aim to achieve your goals, especially when we're talking long-term goals, which majority of goals will be, at least if you want high efficacy. But motivation, it can have its play when we're talking about the short term. But understand just the role of each of these things, and utilize that toward your advantage in achieving whatever goals you have in mind. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, make sure to like the video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys are interested in a free 15-minute consultation or joining my Discord free group, the links are down below in the description of the video. As well as, you guys would love to support the channel, I have my Bitcoin address linked down below in the description of the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.